right, welcome back to the Morning Update Show right here with Marcus Harrison Green. He always makes sure I put that Harrison in there.
Hey, all three names, bro, that's what my mom gave me. Well, she gave me 2 out of the 3. Anyway.
You got to do what mama says. I already know it's Friday, so that means it's time for Headlines with the Emerald. Man, well, let's jump right into it. Our first one, let's see if we got it up on the screen. Our first one's coming from the New York Times today, and it's talking about, man, it wasn't a surprise. You can go and pop that one up there, oh yeah. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a surprise that President Trump got the nomination.
Got the nomination and then went out and just kind of lambasted what was going on in terms of the civic unrest that's going on in various cities, including over there in Wisconsin and specifically for our Northwest folks over in Portland. He basically, skewered a Portland protest and said he's all about law and order.
Wow. So the one thing, right, and that I've noticed about all of this is that all these things are happening right now. But when we hear the president talk, especially in regards to his opponent, to Biden, he's like, if you elect this guy, then this stuff's going to happen. But It's like, it's really happening right now.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing, is like, it's nothing new. I mean, this is a playbook that Richard Nixon even used around the time when he was going up for re-election, I believe, against George McGovern, and he said, hey, if you elect this person, they'll be rioting in the street, they'll be looting in the street. Essentially, your single family, homes and suburbs will be attacked by these marauders. And I mean, honestly, Trump didn't even change any of the language. He was just like, put that on repeat. Let me get
cut and paste.
Exactly, man. I mean, he might have updated it, in a couple cities, but that was about it.
Right.
And I mean, I tell you, when it comes at a time, as as y'all have covered it, where you had the shooting over in the vigilantism over in Kenosha, Wisconsin, with the young man, 17 years old, Kyle Rittenhouse, who basically just self-deputized himself to go and protect property, quote unquote, is what he said in an interview an hour before he began shooting. And 2 people are dead because of that, and several other people are in critical condition in the hospital because he went out with his long rifle to go shoot. And I say that to connect it back to President Trump's speech yesterday, because I mean, you have so many people who are getting riled up and having this directive towards violence, or at least feeling that they have a directive towards violence because they, quote unquote, are protecting something.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear you. You see, the other day we played a clip, South Dakota Governor Norm was calling out Seattle, and then Mayor Jenny came with the clap back.
Yes, she did. I'll give her credit on that one.
All right, so moving on. So we got 2 articles today from the Emerald. One here, the first one here is about SPD and their actions.
Yes, so it goes in about the mediation process. This particular article, written by the great, esteemed Carolyn Bick, goes in about the mediation process and how there was a protester, Ashlyn, let me get her last name correctly, Ashlyn Cooney, who basically filed a complaint and a protest that happened June 7th, and another complaint that happened July 25th that was basically saying that, these cops were pepper sprayed her, they were dragging her through the street and so on and so forth. She goes in to look into her complaint. It says that it's been, quote unquote, told. And when she goes to ask, well, what in the world does told mean? It means it's basically just been paused. And she's like, well, what in the world is going on? And then that led her to talk about the mediation process with OPA. For those who don't know, OPA is the Office of Police Accountability. I'm sure most of the viewers of this show at this point have it burned and singed into their brain. But anyhow, she went to the OPA. They said, well, would you like mediation? And she was like, mediation for what? It's on camera that this person, basically this police officer attacked me. And so they're like, oh, well, usually with mediation, it's for non-policy violations, quote unquote. A non-policy violation would be like, let's say a police officer stops you and they're not, for a traffic ticket or something, they're not, quote unquote, nice to you, right? It's not for when the police pepper sprayed you and sent you to the emergency room, what they did with her. Right. And the unfortunate thing is that this mediation process is extremely arcane and obtuse. Like, one is who in the world is deciding on, mediation, and also the biggest part of this whole thing is like when mediation is decided upon, it usually halts investigations into the police officers and into the incident. And many people, at least Ashlyn was saying that she was not told about this. She had to dig and do her due diligence. So there's many people, several folks, right, who, especially coming from that July 25th protest, who have filed complaints and are like, hey, well, what's going on?
I can tell you one thing. For sure. Two things for certain.
Okay.
OPA's desk overfloweth.
Yes, yes it does. I think it's at 18,000 or something at this point.
It overfloweth with complaints right now, man. So another article there coming from the Emerald is the issue of gun violence, and especially youth gun violence happening in Seattle, King County. Even later on today, I'm going to a rally there on MLK.
I'll see you there.
Yeah, man. So tell us about what's going on here.
Yeah, so as most people know, there's definitely been an uptick and an escalation in gun violence in the city as a whole, but particularly in the South End. It looks like we are on a trajectory to have a record-setting summer in terms of gun violence, and there's still 24 days of summer as of today. And so you do have people like Coach Dominique Davis of Community Passageways, as well as Gurmai Zahale over he's a 37th District Representative. Excuse me, not the 30th, King County District Representative. But he does, sorry about that, but he does represent the 37th District as a part of that, which makes up a huge part of South Seattle and Skyway as well. And he has an idea that he actually is borrowing from that came from Stockton, California, where they were having issues with gun violence. And so what they did was essentially have a universal basic income, which essentially gave money to people every month in areas that were especially not as wealthy as some other areas. And it's like Gurmai said in the article, is that that the gun violence essentially maps with where you have lower income areas. I mean, there is a reason why you don't have an uptick in gun violence in Magnolia or Mercer Island, right? I mean, you put COVID on top of that and you see that there are so many people who they're already under-resourced, and it's like, hey, if I'm fighting for my survival or I'm fighting for the next day, you tend to do some things that aren't necessarily make you a model citizen. Right.
Last one here from The Guardian. And they're talking about Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan might be playing a role behind it. Michael Jordan's caught a lot of heat a lot of his career since his retirement for not being involved in black things and not using his voice and position as a platform. But what's happening here?
Yeah, so the former GOAT, because the current GOAT is LeBron James, greatest of all time, as I say. Anyway, it looks like that Michael Jordan essentially played an outsized role in making sure that the players actually went back and resumed the season. I'm sure everybody knows on Tuesday the players had decided that they were going to strike and boycott some of the season. There was a meeting that took place afterwards, and Michael Jordan, it's now been reported that he played an outside role in bringing the players back together to the table with the owners and basically saying, you messing with our money, so let's go ahead and we can, talk about explicit steps to end racism and so forth after this, but let's get back to playing. And I will say, I mean, Michael Jordan is somebody who Craig Hodges, a former teammate of his, who said during the 1991 finals, this was Michael Jordan's first championship, that he had tried to ask Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson to boycott the first game because that was in the height of the Rodney King beating over, that led to so many uprisings in Los Angeles. And Michael Jordan was like, man, you being a little too radical right here. You fast forward today, right, and now you have 20-something years later, and now you have these players who are actually boycotting and saying that no, this isn't good enough. I mean, you alluded to it earlier when you said with your dad, so much of this stuff continues to happen and persist over the decades, and nothing changes unless something changes. And so we are seeing that at least some NBA players are trying to change.
That's it. Marcus Harrison Green, how can people keep up with you?
Yeah, they can find me at southseattleemerald.org and also lifeonthemarginspodcast.com. And then they'll soon be able to find me on the Seattle Times, as my first column will drop for them, or scheduled to drop for the Seattle Times on Thursday.
Man, you're a busy dude.
Hey, man. Bro, you make me look lazy though, I gotta say. I mean, as much as you do, so.
I'm like, well, all right, fantastic. You guys make sure and keep up with the South Seattle Emerald, all the good stuff they're doing, and they actually break a lot of news out here. So you need to consider them as one of your primary news sources. We're going to take a short break right now. When we come back, my co-host Treyana Holiday is sitting down with Chef Ashley Preston, Prissy Food. It smells good out there. We're getting ready to get after it. You're watching the Morning Update Show.